So here are a couple pro tips about using cups. So, you can use a cup as like a bucket, which it's very well designed to be used, like, just dropping in marbles. You can hook it up to a pulley system or whatever. But they can also be used as like a ramp. So for example, if I were to cut open a cup like I have here, and then you splay it open a bit like that, and then just drop a marble in, it rolls like, nicely along the inside of the cup. And you can also cut it, so if you need a smaller kind of bucket, and this cup, even though it is small, it's too big for where you need it to be. It's always an option to cut down the rim, so you just have a smaller, area like this, and you can hook this up to your pulley also.
Alright, hello, I'm here to show you a pro tip about skill sticks today. And these are kind of like popsicle sticks, but they can be used in more creative ways. They have little notches on the side here, in which you can stick them together to make freestanding structures. And although it might take a little bit to get going, once you do, they're really reliable and sturdy. And you can also hot glue them at the ends where they connect if you want more durability. And I have a structure here just to show you all the different kinds of ways you can stick them together. You can do this simply along the sides here like this, or you can even have another raised structure to have them at angles, so whatever way you see fit, be creative. I'm here today to show you an effective way to use dominoes in your Goldberg kit. So as many of you know, they're a very fun and creative way to utilize a step, but I'm here to show you an easy way to help reset them. So we can use duct tape for this step, and what you're going to do is just tape on one side, leave a little bit of it hanging off here, and you're going to tape it to wherever you want to use it on your pegboard. And you can do this multiple times with all of your dominoes, like so. And when you tip it over, it'll be like that during your step, and then easily reset by just putting them back up, like so.
So I've got some pro tips today about wood with holes in it. When we give you wood with holes in it, all the holes are designed to accept the dowels we gave you. So the dowels slip right in. That also goes for the pegboard. The pegboard is designed so you can stick dowels in it, and say you don't like the location of these dowels, say they're too far apart, you can just take them out and move them closer. Or say you don't like the design at all, you can take them out entirely. These pieces of wood with holes in it also work with these machine screws that we gave you. You can put the machine screws into any of the holed wood. They're all the same diameter. So hopefully this can give you some ideas on how you can use the holed wood to your advantage. Alright, so now I've got some pro tips for you about machine screws. We gave you 4 of these in your kit along with 4 bolts that go on them. They are 1/4 inch diameter, just like the pegboard. So you can stick these through the pegboard, and then you can use them with either the holed pieces of material or the washers, put them on the other side. When you do this and tighten it down, not super tight, only a little bit, this piece will spin freely. In addition, you can use that to strengthen pieces, because the machine screws are probably one of the strongest ways that you can hold stuff onto the board. But it is fairly limited, so you have to figure out your own ways for using it. Sleds. For cutting the foam, how you cut it depends on how you're going to use it. If you want to cut it particularly accurately, you can take a box cutter and very carefully, with something underneath it, like the pegboard. If you're using the pegboard, ask your teacher if you have a place you can cut. And maybe ask your teacher if she'll cut it for you or he'll cut it for you. You take it and you carefully make sure you've marked where it is and just kind of move it back and forth in and cut down. Now sometimes you don't want to cut it, you just want to score it. So now that it's scored, you can go like that and it will pop right open. If you have got the coping saws, and you probably do from CPEP, and you want to cut using that, you're very carefully, typically you want to make sure it's set up in a vise of some sort, and you cut it like that. And this lets you put corners in it sometimes. Its uses, it really depends. Just be careful not to cut your fingers. Most of you, also for the foam, the easiest way to cut it is, most of you should have this. It's a Wonder Cutter. It is the wire that is heated up in the little thing. All you have to do in that case is just put it through it, and it will cut it and seal it at the same time. I'm here with some safety tips on the mousetrap. To arm it, all you do is you pull it back carefully, hold it with one finger. You take this part right here that's at the end, you put it over the bar and over the spring, and then there is a metal piece at the other side. You pull that up a bit so that way this metal piece will hold on to it. And then right there, it is armed. When it is armed, and even when you're arming it, keep your fingers out of this half of it. You don't want your fingers being there when it shuts because it will cut very hard and it will hurt you. Oftentimes, it's just totally fine. Just ask your teacher to help you with these. Don't play around with them a bunch because the longer you play around with it, the more likely you are that you're gonna hurt yourself. Nothing will hold a mousetrap down except for a fair amount of duct tape wrapped over it when it's unarmed if you wanna hold it to your board. If you tape a small piece of dowel to it, you can use it to hit dominoes if you have something like a marble fall on top of it. Just be warned, if this flings your marble way off the board because of how powerful it is, you will lose points. Hey, I'm here with some pro tips on how to cut and drill PVC. So for cutting it, you're gonna get a saw similar to this one. You're gonna want to mark where you're gonna cut it. You're gonna put your safety goggles on, and you're going to go back and forth carefully. Make sure your hands are like here. Also, preferably you want to grip it down with a vise or something and have it off the edge of a table because then you can really get a good cut on it. Now, you can also drill the PVC. What you're gonna do is you're gonna mark where you want your hole drilled. You're gonna wanna hold it carefully in a vise or off the edge of a table, or both, and carefully using a small drill bit with even pressure, push down until you cut through, and then stop, put the drill in reverse, and reverse out of the hole. You don't want to pull it straight out of the hole. And there, you'll get a clean hole in your pipe. So that's how you can both cut and drill your PVC pipe. Wear your safety goggles whenever you're doing anything involving cutting, power tools, or just the handsaw. Hammering sometimes too. You don't want anything to hit you.
Another tip with just cutting any of the materials, you just want to be mindful, know what you're cutting this for. Let's say you have a step that might need a piece of foam. You want to keep some guide to how much of it you actually need. If you need about, let's say, 2 inches worth of this block of foam, you want to take a ruler and measure out the 2 inches. Have a nice little line marked with your Sharpie, and then go ahead and cut it. You're gonna want to use your duct tape sparingly, as you're not given this much. You're gonna be given a limited amount, and it can be helpful with your machine. Keep in mind how much you need. All right, if you need like 5 inches worth of duct tape, you don't want to roll out a big strand like this. You want to keep it at about 5 inches. The best way to cut it is take some scissors, and just as simple as that, you get a nice clean cut with some scissors. Fold the rest of your duct tape up, and you'll have a good piece to use on your machine. And those are some tips to keep in mind when you're cutting any of the materials that you're providing.
If not done correctly, it can be really easy for your dowels to not stand straight upright. So we've included a solution for this. What you're going to want is one of these pieces of wood with 2 holes on one side and 1 hole in the other. Take a bolt and put it through the pegboard about in the area that you're going to want your piece of dowel. Then put this side with 2 holes in it, down with 1 hole on it. Then put a bolt, put a nut. Then take your dowel and stick it in the other hole that's facing out. Now your dowel should stand straight upright, and you can move it around a little bit before tightening the nut. For this pro tip, I'm going to show you how to get the dowels to go into some of the holes that just are a little bit too tight to really get as far as you'd like. What you're going to want is some sandpaper. It might not be this color, but some sandpaper from your CPEP toolbox. Ask your teacher about this, they'll know what you're talking about. Then, take the end of the dowel that you want to put in a hole and just lightly sand it. Don't sand too much off, otherwise the fit might not be tight enough anyway. Then, you'll be able to slip your dowel as far as you'd like. That could be a pain to set up again. So, we've included some masking tape in the kit, but it only has two uses. First use is setting up dominoes. You can use a little piece on the dominoes to hold them up, so that way when you knock them over, you can quickly set them up. As a judge for the competition, I highly recommend that you do this to keep your reset time low. Otherwise, we may have to call a 2-minute warning on you, and it may take a longer time than 2 minutes for you to set up your dominoes. Now watch. I can just set them up like that. The other use is to label your simple machines. So here, I have a lever. Now for the rubric, you're required to label your simple machines. So I can just put a little bit of tape on there, and write on here, lever. We want you to label on a piece of masking tape as opposed to on the actual pieces themselves, because it's a lot easier for you to do in the first place. And second, it means that at the end of the year, when you need to remove all the things from your machine, you can remove the label without ruining the piece. Now, you cannot use masking tape for any other purposes, such as affixing a piece to a board. You're not allowed to go ahead and take this lever piece and say that you really want it to be at this exact angle to be an inclined plane and do that. That is not allowed. You're also not allowed to use masking tape as a piece at the end of a dowel to make sure that something doesn't slide off. That is not allowed either. The only two purposes that are allowed are for dominoes and for labeling. For this pro tip segment, I'm going to teach you how to use these pieces of tubing. The pieces of tubing are intended to help you put dowels at angles. See, like this, I can bend the dowel in whatever directions I want. It won't stay there unless I use another piece, but it will let you go ahead and make contraptions at angles. This is also very helpful for making things like these, which are golf ball runs. Using 2 dowels and 2 pieces of tubing, you can make a little golf ball run. For this pro tip, I'm going to show you how you can attach some odd pieces together, like this piece of mailing tube. It doesn't necessarily go well with the kit, well, unless you use the Velcro. You can put the Velcro on the end of one of these pieces. Put either a hook piece or a loop piece. For this piece, I've chosen to put the hook. Then, for the mailing tube, select the space on it where you want to put your opposite piece. So in this case, I'm putting a loop piece. Now, with this, I can attach this to the wall of the pegboard with a nut and a bolt, and then I'm able to attach my mailing tube. This is a fairly sturdy setup if I want to use this for like a hoop. This setup also allows me to change the angle, so now it can be more like a track. It's up to you how you use this, but it's highly recommended that if you're going to use hook and loop dots, you put the pieces onto something like this, because then you can move this around the board without having to remove the adhesive on the hook and loop dots. Here's my pro tip on how to put ramps at angles. Set dowels in the pegboard using the blocks at approximately the angles you want your ramps to go. Then take your marble and ramps and just slip the slots and holes into it. Because of this setup, you can actually put the ramps at many different angles without having to worry about whether or not a hole will be there, because most likely a slot or a hole will be there. With this, you can adjust the angle by tilting these a little bit, or by entirely moving the piece. When you want your piece of ramp to stay fairly stable, you can take one of the roller coaster clips if you have extra and slide it onto one of the dowels. That'll make sure that it doesn't slide off the dowel. Alternatively, you could use one of the 3-hole pieces of wood or one of the pieces of wood that have 2 holes on one side and 1 hole on the other. I'm just going to use these roller coaster clips because they're the simplest way to do it. I recommend using broken roller coaster clips if you end up breaking a few.